നന്ദിയല്ലാതൊന്നുമില്ല എൻ്റെ നാവിൽ ചൊല്ലിടുവാൻ. സ്തുതിയല്ലാതൊന്നുമില്ല എൻ്റെ ഹൃദയത്തിൽ ഉയർന്നിടുവാൻ. സ്തോത്രമല്ലാതൊന്നുമില്ല നിനക്കായി ഞാൻ സമർപ്പിക്കുവാൻ. യേശുവേ നിൻ സ്നേഹമല്ലോ വർണ്ണിച്ചിടുവാൻ സാധ്യമല്ല. സ്തുതി സ്തുതി നിനക്കെന്നുമേ സ്തുതികളിൽ വസിപ്പവനേ. സ്തുതിധനം ബലം നിനക്കേ സ്തുതികളിൽ ഉന്നതനേ. സ്തുതിധനം ബലം നിനക്കേ സ്തുതികളിൽ ഉന്നതനേ. കൃപയല്ലാതൊന്നുമല്ല എൻ്റെ വീണ്ടെടുപ്പിൻ കാരണം. കൃപയാലാ നിൻ ജീവിതം അതിനാനന്ദമതിമധുരം. ബലഹീനതയിൽ തികയും ദൈവശക്തി എന്നാശ്രയമേ. ബലഹീനതയിൽ ദിനവും യേശുവിൽ ഞാൻ പ്രശംസിച്ചിടും. കൃപയതി മനോഹരം കൃപ കൃപയതി മധുരം. കൃപയിൽ ഞാൻ ആനന്ദിക്കും കൃപയിൽ ഞാൻ ആശ്രയിക്കും. കൃപയിൽ ഞാൻ ആനന്ദിക്കും കൃപയിൽ ഞാൻ ആശ്രയിക്കും. രാജാവിന് ജയം പ്രാപിപ്പാൻ സാധ്യമല്ല. വ്യർത്ഥമാണി കുതിരയല്ല വ്യർത്ഥമല്ലെൻ പ്രാർത്ഥനകൾ. നിന്നിൽ പ്രത്യാശ വെപ്പവർ നീ. നിന്റെ ദയയെന്നും നിശ്ചയമേ. യേശുവേ നിൻ വരവതിനായി കാത്തു കാത്തു ഞാൻ പാട്ടിടുന്നേ. ജയം ജയം യേശുവിനെ. ജയം ജയം കർത്താവിനെ. ജയം ജയം രക്ഷകന്. ഹല്ലേലൂയ ജയമെന്നുമേ. ജയം ജയം രക്ഷകന്. ഹല്ലേലൂയ ജയമെന്നുമേ.
Thank you, everyone. We got one more song for you guys this morning, and I just wanted to give you a quick synopsis of the first song. It's a Thanksgiving song, and the second song that we are going to sing is the different attributes of Yehovah, and it would be great if you guys could join us in the chorus. Sorry. The chorus goes something like this. It's Ni Matra Madi, which means you are all that I need, or we need. So when the chorus comes, and if you recognize it, and you can join us. It'll be tough, but the words go something like this. It'll repeat itself a few times. So it's Ni Matra Madi, and that's all. Thank you.
യഹോവയേ ദാതാവാം ദൈവം നീ മാത്രം മതി എനിക്ക് യഹോവ രാഫ സൗഖ്യദായകൻ കണ്ണടിപ്പിണരാൽ സൗഖ്യം യഹോവ ശമ്മ കൂടെയിരിക്കും നൽകുമെൻ ആവശ്യങ്ങൾ നീ മാത്രം മതി നീ മാത്രം മതി നീ മാത്രം മതി എനിക്ക് നീ മാത്രം മതി നീ മാത്രം മതി നീ മാത്രം മതി എനിക്ക് സൃഷ്ടാവാം ദൈവം നിൻ വചനത്താലുളവായല്ല യഹോവയോ അത്യുന്നതൻ നീ നിന്നെപ്പോലെ മറ്റാരുമില്ല യഹോവ ശാലോം എൻ സമാധാനം നൽകി നിൻ ശാന്തി എന്നിൽ നീ മാത്രം മതി നീ മാത്രം മതി നീ മാത്രം മതി എനിക്ക് നീ മാത്രം മതി നീ മാത്രം മതി നീ മാത്രം മതി എനിക്ക് യഹോവയേ ദാതാവാം ദൈവം നീ മാത്രം മതി എനിക്ക് യഹോവ രാഫ സൗഖ്യദായകൻ കണ്ണടിപ്പിണരാൽ സൗഖ്യം യഹോവ ശമ്മ കൂടെയിരിക്കും നൽകുമെൻ ആവശ്യങ്ങൾ നീ മാത്രം മതി Miss Lisa Francis.
I'm Smita Devi and Lubina Khanna.
I'm Anil Varghese.
And I'm Joseph Kumel.
What I heard was, me, Master, Midi, give me grace. So with that grace, we grace the life, happiness, joy, and John I had lost for 20 years. I discovered yesterday. So he is gracious, has come. He is the one who taught us 45 years ago that India is important. And I didn't know that he had a different faith. But with all that, let us understand from him how Kerala accepted St. Thomas on behalf of India and how India became a land of hospitality. John, PM John, is a professor in the Bridgewater State College for a long time, now retired. You just explained it. You explained the Kerala Christianity.
In Kerala, Christian faith is traditionally celebrated from 52 AD, because that was when the Apostle Thomas traditionally has come to India and preached Christian faith. And so we consider ourselves to be the followers of St. Thomas. Initially, we were called St. Thomas Christians.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Udgasat
इच्छति किन्नराणां तानप्रदायित्वम् इव उपदन्तम् समानसी मेरुसता पृथ्वीना कन्या कुलस्य स्थितये स्थितिजिनाः मीना मुनीनामपि माननीया आत्मानरूपा विधिनोपयेमे कालक्रमेण तयो प्रवृत्ति स्वरूपयोग्यसुरतप्रसन्ने मनोरमा यौवनमुद्वहन्त्या गर्भोऽवबन्धूदरराजपत्न्या असूतसा नागवधूपभोग्यं मैनाकम् अम्भोनिधिभक्तसख्यं क्रुद्धे अपि पक्षच्छिद्दि वृत्राशत्रौ अवेदनाज्ञा कुलिशाशधाना अथा अवमानेन पितुः प्रयुक्तदक्षस्य कन्या भवपूर्वपत्नी सती योगविसृष्टा देहा तां जन्मने शैलावधू प्रपेदे प्रसन्नादि पांसु विविक्तवातं शङ्कस्वन अनन्तर पुष्पवृष्टि शरीरिणा स्थावरजङ्गमाना सुखाय तज्जन्मदिनं बभूव सुखाय तज्जन्मदिनं बभूव सुखाय तज्जन्मदिनं बभूव
Thank you, Ushaji. So my happy task today is to be moderator, which for some of you may not be very happy because I'm going to keep you to a schedule. And those of you who know Indian events know that sometimes this can not be a very happy event. Dr. Vivian Lee of the Worcester Art Museum is the Associate Curator of Asian Art and Global Contemporary Art at Worcester Art Museum in Worcester, Mass. She received her doctorate degree from the University of Michigan in 2015 and was a Fulbright Scholar. She's an avid researcher and lecturer on sculpture in Asia. So it's my honor to welcome you.
Good morning, everybody, and I'm very delighted to be here with you all to share some of my little bit of knowledge that I have and to hear and learn from all of you, the rest of our speakers for today. I also just wanted to thank Dr. Bijoy Mishra for inviting me to this wonderful seminar, and I'm just very honored to be here, also talk with Dr. Mishra about India Discovery Center. It was just such a vision that he shared with me that I'm glad that I can take or share my part in that vision. And so we talked about topics to speak about for today, about the arts. And so we thought that Ajanta would be a very apt way to begin. Ajanta is, as many of you might know, is one of the oldest Buddhist painting murals. Well, it's a cave site in India, about 200 miles from Mumbai or Bombay. So if you're ever going to Mumbai, please make a visit there. It's an amazing cave site, what you see on the left, aerial view. And I also put next to it kind of juxtaposition with the Parthenon in Athens, Greece. And you might wonder why I did that. Many times, actually, the Ajanta is compared to the Parthenon because of actually many similarities that they share. They both represent their cultures of the highest achievement of human achievement of their time, the golden periods of both of their respective cultures. And they both honor the gods in their respective culture too, so they symbolize that. They also are reflective of very high court taste of their cultures at the time. So they're very symbolic for each of their cultures, and they still stand and represent that for contemporary viewers and visitors today. So I just want to kind of also for those who have never been to Ajanta, but are maybe more familiar with Parthenon, to maybe start that out by putting you in that mindset. So this is actually pictures of the Ajanta caves, also more of a modern day vernacular shot on the right. It is a series of 28 caves, Buddhist caves, that were created in the India's Deccan Plateau. And as you can see, it's a deep gorge in the rocks. It's a rocky, it's one of the first rock-cut architecture in India, one of the very earliest ones. And you think of this is a picture of the 28 caves that make up Ajanta. So originally, it was, so number 10 that you see over here was the original hall, and then also some other, 4 others were other cave sites were the original parts of Ajanta cave. But then, especially in the 5th century, with the rise of a particular emperor, Harisena, from 460 to 477, and during his short reign, he was able to. It was a peaceful reign during that time, and he was able to expand India. Harisena, he descended from the Gupta kingdom, which unified northern India. But then, and his part of the family, the Vakataka side, ruled South India. But soon he came to rule both sides. And then during his reign, he's considered one of the greatest rulers during this time. He then was able to expand Ajanta into currently the 28 caves, a series of caves that you see here. And then just to give you a little perspective on the location of Ajanta, so it was, as I said, it's very close to Bombay. At the time, it's very remote from the capital too. of the kingdom. And then, so it was not meant to be near the urban center at all. It was meant to be a retreat from that area. But it was meant to be an idyllic retreat center for people to go to meditate, and also for monastics to live in the cave monastery. As I mentioned, it's one of the earliest rock cut cave sites or monuments in India. Maybe, hopefully you can see this is Ajanta here, and it's one of the Buddhist rock cut monuments. But there are also contemporary to it others that also developed too at the time. During this time, Hinduism and Buddhism were both practiced and weren't seen as exclusive to each other either. So Harisena, the emperor, he himself was a Hindu devotee, but he also patronized such as this Ajanta cave site. So it also shows the tolerance during that period that I think is very interesting, and also gave rise to such great monuments that we see today. During the Ajanta caves, especially, commissioned many of these caves. Not just the emperor, he is known for commissioning one particular cave, cave number 1, which is the most legal of them all. As you can see, this is all stone-cut architecture, but it emulates wooden architecture too. So in this way, Ajanta is very important too for understanding, and also with figural representations, and as you'll see a few more slides later, the mural paintings of the figural compositions are very important also to understand how early Indian culture, especially in the 4th, 5th century, during this time, how they were in real life also have architecture and fashion, and also and such as their hairdress and clothing. So it's very historically and also socially very important for us for scholars and for everybody to learn more about. The emperor, he commissioned the first cave. So who commissioned the rest of the caves? As I said, this time was a moment of great prosperity in the lands. So then, and many of the elites of the court, or the noblemen of the court, would also commission different caves. And so they would, so you see the art at a very high sophistication. The quality is also demanded to be at a very high quality. So in this way, that is why Ajanta Caves is also very important for seeing how courtly tastes were also reflected in the arts. The Ajanta Caves, I should mention, the very first few caves that were created were already created in 100 BC. Those very first few ones I talked about earlier. But also, it was only until 100 AD that Buddhist figuration of the Buddha was allowed in Buddhist art. Buddha had already died for more than 300 years by now, but it was only in 100 AD that figuration of the Buddha or imagination of him was allowed to. So this is also why the Ajanta caves are also very important to be one of the first Buddhist paintings showing the figure, the Buddhist figure. These are just some magnificent, very royal, very graceful figuration too, reflecting the courtly life, only in stone. And also Cave 1 is especially, since it's commissioned by the emperor, of course, is the most lavish and royal of them all, of all the caves. Cave 1 is also famous for its murals, especially of its very regal figures. And it's Cave 1, there's many Jataka scenes or lives of the multiple lives of the Buddha before he reaches enlightenment. So these, in Cave 1, the Jataka scenes show Buddha in a form or life when he was a royalty or a prince. And so, and before he relinquishes that life to then go on to the path of asceticism and enlightenment. These are also, as you can see, just the figures too. Just to describe a little bit about how the painting process itself was happened. Since we're talking about cave drawings in essence, how do you go about drawing onto the rocky surface? First, they would adhere a mixture of rice husk, cow dung, as well as a plaster of clay. So those mixture of those three things, they would adhere to the surface of the rocky cave walls, and then they would apply a lime juice mixture onto the surface of that once it dries. So I see some of you making very interesting faces about what's, this is not edible. Well, maybe it might be, but you don't want to eat it. But it's not meant for that. It's meant for painting and creating a smooth, beautiful surface to then for the artist to or painter to then create on. So applying the lime juice mixture on the very top of the surface creates this smooth surface. For then to use pigments. There are natural pigments such as red ochre, yellow ochre, or green malachite, and lapis lazuli for the blue. So we get these very rich mineral colors that it's lost in the slides. You really have to see it in person to really appreciate the rich, brilliant colors that you see when you go see this. The natural, especially the malachite and the lapis lazuli, have crystals in them that then create a shine to the surface too that unfortunately is a thing we miss in the slides. These are some of the, so these are also interesting too because earlier Indian painting, at least up to this point, usually the composition would be in frieze or bands of scenes. But in this, in the Ajanta caves, it's also interesting that the composition is a very from a central figure, as you can see here, and then going out. So it takes up the full scene or takes up the full wall, which makes a much more grander composition than the usual composition of friezes or bands of scenes going on. I should also mention that you might be wondering what happens in the monastery or in the Ajanta caves. So monks lived 30 or 40 in some of the caves at a time. So these are large caves. Don't take my small diagram to be to scale. But these are large caves that 30 to 40 monks would reside in them at a time. And there are smaller caves used for cells for just 2 or 3 people to meditate or to go about their own practices. And also many of the figures, as I mentioned, are garbed in contemporary dress. So even though they're Buddhist figures or religious figures, such as Bodhisattva here, the central figure here, but they're also garbed in contemporary at that time dress styles. So that is also very interesting for scholars to learn about more about the Indian civilization at that time. This is a close-up. Just the very sophisticated visual composition, especially at this time, 4th, 5th century, is phenomenal. If you go in the span of world art history to achieve this type of very realistic, not idealistic, like in Roman and Greek art at this time would be. This is in a way a naturalism that's achieved and a sensuousness of the body that is not just phenomenal to be able to already experience at this time. This is K2. And also the structures we can learn about, as I said, architecture of that time. But especially of the court palatial architecture. So these columns, these lentils decoration are reflective of the wooden architecture. So in that way we also learn about early Indian architecture too from Ajanta Caves. So it is a treasure trove for knowledge for not just for artists and for art lovers, but also for historians and other scholars interested in learning about early Indian history and society. This is a beautiful rose mandala that's included. Just some other images of this is a stupa, Buddhist stupa within one of the caves. So these are just monumental, also in size. I'm sorry, I do not have a human person in there to help give you that scale, but it is truly spectacular of what they were able to do, especially when you think of these masons weren't trained to drill into tunnels into the mountains. I mean, today just driving around, you kind of take that for granted, drilling into mountains. But this is a temple, essentially in a mountain, and to do that, and also to carve such beautiful carvings, a rich decoration is not a small feat at all. I also wanted to mention, so then in the end, when the Emperor Harsena, he died in 477, and after that, after his golden rule, where Ajanta Caves developed and prospered with all the other court patronage that helped to develop Ajanta. Less than 20 years after his death, Ajanta was no more in a way, because after his death, like many other dynasties or stories of such great rulers, their successors were not as good as him, and so then soon there was no more support, and then soon people stopped supporting and didn't have funds anymore to support the Ajanta Caves and its developments. Instead, the funds went towards war and those types of calamities. So then, and the new overlords that did succeed him also did not take, or were interested in Hinduism and did not have so much interest in Buddhism. So then suddenly all work that was put into Ajanta Caves was halted. And then, so then with his death 20 years later, Ajanta Cave was abandoned pretty much. So it survived for the rest of its time from the 5th century until, for 1,300 years until 1819, when a British lieutenant, while he was on a tiger hunt in the area, came upon Ajanta caves. And from there, in 1819, so from 4th century, 5th century, 5th century, to the 19th century, that was the how long Ajanta was kind of forgotten. So, thank you.
Women monks and why was they built in caves rather than like city center like in Parthenon?
If the women.
Yeah, if there are any evidence of women monks or women representation and the second question is why were they built in caves rather than in city center or this?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I'll answer that one first, because there is a certain energy that's believed to be out in the mountains or out in, that is not in the city center. So the spiritual energy is higher or believed to be higher in the mountains or in the areas closer to the heavens in a way. Because the energy is higher in the mountains, so that is why you find many temple sites, and then also it goes on into East Asia as Buddhism has spread there too. Many temples are built in the mountains, and in a way it does help with to meditate, to escape this the work of busy life. And then your second question about women monks. I didn't come across, I don't think there were women monks. I guess you were referring to the depictions of princesses. And that was more for the Jataka scenes, those stories. There were women in those stories. So, and the Buddha's one of his forms or lives was a court prince. So that was the story.
Welcome, Mr. Shastri, Shekhar Shastri of Nehru Educational Foundation in Lexington. Mr. Shastri will give a talk on the evolution of Indian aesthetics.
What about presentation? What makes a presentation aesthetic? Good. Any other words? That's the topic that we are here to discuss today.
Appealing to the eye.
Appealing to?
Appealing to the eye.
Appealing to the eye. Excellent. Or appealing to any of the senses, right? And even beyond senses, possibly, if there is something like that. So, how many of you know what is on the right side of the? What is it? Nataraj. What is Natta?
Dance.
Natta. Raj is the king or the lord. Nat is? Yes. Who said actor? Okay. The one who is the lord of all the actors. Lord of acting. The lord of drama. Okay. So, and Nataraj is also another form of who? Lord Shiva. Okay. So what is the connection between Shiva and acting? Tandav. Okay, you guys know a lot already. So, on the right side, you see a small picture. What is it? That you see in the white little box. Banyan tree. Also, what does it evoke? You have already heard a few talks on related topics. So I'm just giving you a hint. What is it? Yeah, Kalpataru is a good one. Ashwath, okay. Also, and someone sat under it, right? Who? Gautam. Gautam sat under it. Under what? The Bodhi tree. And he became who? The Gautam sat under the Bodhi tree and he became Buddha. Okay? So that is the magic of this tree. Okay? So why should I actually put it here? You've already heard this Buddha story. Because I have a personal angle to it. I was born very close to it. Okay? So in the afternoons, we would sneak out, little kids, and just play around that tree and the temple and so on. Okay? And somehow, even as very small kids, the sense was that if you could touch the tree, or especially if you could break off a leaf out of that tree and hold it, you would somehow become very smart. The concept of exams was not there, but I could see my older siblings taking exams and being really stressed out about it. So we started early in that game, me and my sister who was a little older than me. We would climb on each other and try to pull the branches and connect the leaves. Now, of course, you have to stand 100 meters from it and take pictures. Okay? So at that time, we created a collection of some of those leaves and put it on in some of the books, thinking that when we grow up and we have to take exams, we'll get really good grades. But what is this about? When the moment you look at the tree, it is just a tree. What does it evoke to you? It is just a banyan tree. Why should it be Kalpataru? Kalpataru is the wishing tree. So there are certain objects, things, places, times, people, they take symbolic meaning. And in order to tell a story, you use symbols. Mr. Nagar just spoke about symbols forming the language and culture. A few years back, about 20 years back, I saw a newspaper story and heard that they were just extremely old, 10,000 to 40,000 year old rock art in central India. How many of you have you been to Bhimbetka? You've seen that, right? And when I saw that, when we were actually just, it was still quite desolate over there, and wondered, we want to call it art, but what was the purpose of this art? Any ideas? Any takers? Why would someone, some thousands of years back, draw something on rock? Why?
For good hunting.
For good hunting, trying to communicate, right? Or memorialize something really special happened there.
Strip this history.
They're trying to communicate something to someone, maybe within the community or maybe outside. Okay? And so this quest to communicate something that is going to be received and remembered, that's what we want, right? When I stand here, I want you to remember what I told you today, right? What I spoke. And how is it going to become important? You can get information from Google, right? Anything. Or Barnes & Noble, or the wonderful libraries. What do you want to go away with? What?
Understanding what memory.
Just simply understanding. Raise the benchmark.
Impression.
Impression? What kind of impression? You heard many lectures. You want something?
Inspiration.
Inspiration. That stays with you for a long time. Right? Ashtadhyayi, Mr. Nagar already mentioned Ashtadhyayi of Panini. So when he created this elaborate grammar, which was so compact in 4,000 rules, he put the entire grammar of Sanskrit in some sutra-style rules. So the whole revolution was already taking place before that, and around that time, where any knowledge, the possibility arose that you could codify those things into sutras, very compact aphorisms. And there was a technology that built, and Panini, as Mishraji also mentioned, stands as probably one of the most monumental human accomplishments. Around that time, also just because grammar has already been stated, and also poetics has been mentioned. Poetry was really important because in a couplet, in a shloka, in 2 lines, you could compact an entire thesis. But then you wanted to make sure that other people remember it. So it had to have a message there. But somehow, sometimes you even recited those shlokas without even understanding they sounded beautiful, just like right now. Kalidas wrote Kumar Sambhavam. You don't understand, most people don't understand what was actually stated there, but even when you simply recite it, okay, it does something. But then you put some rhythm to it. That is, you compose it in a chanda, in a meter. What is a chand? Chand is a kind of mental hook. You hang your words on those along a particular meter. So there are a bunch of books here. I'm sure there is something. Is there something on chanda over here?
I'm sure.
Okay, so the meters, the prosody. So that is a technology. And then you want rhythm, you want melody. You want some musicality to what you have written. Then you start decorating similarly. You start putting metaphor. If you want to express something powerfully to a person, and you want the person to like you, you can use metaphors. You can use sun, moon, evening, breeze. Right? That's what poetry is about. Because if you directly say, these days it is so simple to actually just express everything in those 3 words. But it has become as dead as hello, dial tone. So if you want to actually express something romantic, you have to be creative. Right? You have to use symbols and metaphors. And so it is a whole enterprise of the technology of poetics happened. And it flourished like never before. And I must say that what happened during that era, this golden era, I don't think it has ever been replicated or practiced to the same extent. Because the poetry itself, now people talk about actually giving an elevator pitch when you go in front of a venture capitalist. But there, you had to actually not 60 seconds, you had to actually convey something in 15 seconds. That's something that you would remember all your life. So entire thesis had to be captured in there. And even in Ashtadhyayi, Panini states that there was a Natash Sutra of Shilavan that coded dramaturgy. Oh, let me go back. And even before, there was at the right top, you see something from Atharvaveda, which is a much older text. The Pashya Devasya Kavyam Mamar Najirvyati. So look at the divine poetic creation, which is immutable. So there is already a sense that look at this poetic creation. So means that creation, calling it poetic means the poetry inherently had to be beautiful, something inspiring. So this creation itself, the nature and the cosmos, amazing, the wonderment, the adbhuta. So there is a connection between that the poetry itself had to be wonderful. And this cosmos is amazing. So what is is there a connection between the creator at large of the cosmos and the creator of the verse, the poet? So, at some point, the idea arose that even our ancestors, the Vedic seers, the rishis, they were trying to, their whole purpose was to generate something powerful inside through the recitations and through the yagna, the fire ceremonies or other kinds of yagna. And Bharat Muni composed the Natya Shastra, which consists of 6,000 verses in 36 chapters. And there, he encoded the entire enterprise of dramaturgy or Natya. Natya, that's why it is difficult, it is not just drama. Because Natya also contains poetry, it contains dance, drama, music, and also inspires sculpture and painting, for that matter. And for that, up front he says that I have composed this Natya Shastra, and out of that, the intellectual content comes from the Rig Veda, the music comes from Samaveda, mimetic or the Abhinay, the body language comes from Yajurveda, and the rest of the emotional content comes from Atharva Veda. In here, there is also a correspondence or a conversation that is being indicated that what happened in the Vedic period, the whole purpose of the Vedic yagna, it has something to do with the drama that takes place on the stage. What actors do, what the musicians and they work together. So there is some kind of correspondence, and he explicitly states that, it's possible that some people did not get an opportunity to study the Veda. For whatever reason. So now I'm actually just, putting this together so that common people, anyone, can be touched and the same magic can be created. As I mentioned, it also exists, it has many key ideas about acting, dance, poetics, and philosophy, cognition. So one is actually stunned by how modern or relevant it remains even today. So to look at it chronologically as an intellectual archaeology doesn't make sense. Because it is here for something to be practiced, and indeed it is practiced. So if you ask many of the dancers, the classical dancers, especially the Bharatanatyam, they've already been exposed, and because there are many lists of how you can use your eyes, your limbs, your facial expressions, your eyebrows. So there are, let's say, there are 53 different ways of mudras that you can actually the way you can use your hands. Okay. And one of the key ideas that I want to truly focus on is the whole idea of rasa that Prem Nagarji already mentioned. But what is rasa? Rasa is the magic that everyone wants when you go to a music concert. When you meet a friend, that is what you're looking for. The romance that you once upon you had, that's the magic. You can't call it simply love. There is some magic that is immutable. It seems like it will survive even our lifetimes. In fact, they say that that is the only thing that you can take along with you. Not your home, not your car, not your degrees, not your glory, not all the vanity that you can collect all your life. The only thing that you can take with you is the transformative experience that you had. And that's why rasa cannot be translated. We all know about it. The whole enterprise of poetry, drama, cinema, everything can only take you to a point. And it's not about the poet, it's not about the actor. It is you, the audience, the listener, the shrota, who has to take the flight from that cliff. And that's why you go to a performance. That's why you go to a gallery where you see a painting and that transports you, takes you somewhere else. That's the whole idea of rasa. And if there is no rasa, there is no point for me to stand here. Because you'll forget it. So as an actor, as a speaker, as a musician, my task is to become invisible. It's only you, the listener. The audience is the only one that exists. And even they don't exist in their mundane format. They have transcended into something else. Into the highest possible state that they can experience. So that is the whole purpose of drama, performance, literature is the that is generated in the heart of the audience. Bharata, in his Natya Shastra, mentions the 8 important rasas. These are all Shringara, Hasya, Karuna, Raudra, Veera, Bhayana, Vibhatsa, Adbhuta, and even in the bottom, the Sanskrit thing that I have written, look at that. In just 2 lines, he has encoded all of those things and stated that these are the most important rasas. So that's what I said, the technology of poetry. And there are 6,000 such verses which contains more than what one can process in a lifetime. And there is also a word called bhava, and I will try to actually draw a distinction, and thanks for actually just initiating everyone. Bhav is what we do on the stage. When I use my hand, that is bhav. The way I use my tonality, my voice, that is bhav. When I speak, change, that is bhav. What is generated in your heart is rasa. What happens? So, no meaningful idea is conveyed if the rasa is not evoked. That is the whole purpose of Natya. And that is the secret or the essence of all the 6,000 verses that were stated in there, in the Rasa, the 6th chapter of Natya Shastra. And it is called, as I mentioned, the rasa is that transcendental miracle, the delight, which has a form, yet you can't touch it. You can't embrace rasa. You can only sense it and feel it. You may have it in your heart, but you can't share it. You cannot share it with even your partner. Because that, as an individual, you alone carry it. And that is also, there's a whole technology here in Natya Shastra, is that how is it from the poet on the right side you see, how is it conveyed to the audience? What happens in between is called abhinay. And abhinay are of 4 kinds. You use your body language, think. You use your voice. That is part of music, and I'll actually briefly mention that also. So acting and dance, you just use your body. The way you dress yourself up, or the context or the stage. And the other one is what you feel inside yourself. You may not say anything, but the way you feel inside, people get it. Is it true? So you're all playing that drama, but next time you want to win someone's heart, generate something inside yourself. That is sattvic bhav. Because it's not enough to have clever things to say. You have to change the way what you have in your heart. So when you stand on the stage, and if I'm worried about something else at home, I cannot be Hamlet. In order to be Hamlet, I have to drop Shekhar and just be Hamlet. So there is a whole concept of dying at the door, at the Yamak Dwar, when you come on the stage. Abhinay, you use your face in many different different ways. You use your eyes in many different ways. So there are long lists. There are 50 ways of using your eyes, eyeballs, 13 ways of using your eyebrows, how to curl your lips or nose, and cheekbones, even your chin. So there are long lists. So people get lost generally in that long list. But the heart of it is that if you sense it inside yourself and with practice, you are able to convey, because you can only do the bhav as on the stage, but at the same time, you're always on the stage, because they say the life itself is a drama. So before Shakespeare, about 1600 years back approximately, Natya Shastra, Bharata Muni said, life is a drama, play it well. Vachikam. When you want to say something, have a story, a plot. Use the tonality of your voice. Have some music in there. Yet at the same time, there is a lot that needs to be created, that it needs to be actually just put together. So, right side, it said that there are many ingredients in order to be able to communicate and generate rasa. It is just like cooking. You put many things together. What comes out is not one single taste. It is something that transcends all the taste of the ingredients and the process. And that is what you do abhinay. You're all the time acting. But the most important thing is the sahriday, the audience. We are all looking for audience. Even when you're sitting here, your mind is going or you're chattering away. It's so hard to really just give up the obsession to be heard. You always want to be heard. You struggle all your lives, even with your family, with your children, with your spouse. So we all aim to actually just gain the audience, but we lose the ones who is this closest to us. And that's where he says that you have to manage the sahriday, the listener. First create listening in others. Unless and until the others are listening, your entire thesis is meaningless. And once again, coming back to that, is that the enterprise, when you look at the evolution of this rasa, it comes from the Vedic yajna. Here, they're all collaborating. This is a stage where they're all collaborating together to create that miraculous, the aesthetic delight. And until and unless you master this whole enterprise of natya, you cannot fulfill the purusharth of dharma, artha, kam, moksha, a balanced and fulfilling life. And that is the whole purpose of natya that was given there. And so, whether you realize it or not, you're always searching that nectar of immortality. And that's what the rasa is, according to Natya Shastra, and the whole enterprise of thousands of texts that are written subsequently, and the practice of it. And the reason that it survives today is there is one single thing that you want from life, is that amazing magic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shastri. I just wanted to mention that Mr. Shekhar Shastri is the director of the Mehru Education Foundation in Lexington. He's a language scholar and a musician with interest in the classical arts. He has taught Sanskrit poetics and Indian aesthetics at MIT and other academic institutions in the U.S. Would you take a couple of questions?
Sure.
Sure. Anyone has questions?
Hungry, yeah.
I guess the evolution of aesthetics was during this period. I mean, the whole presentation was...
Right now, because the seminar is limited to that period, but the evolution of aesthetics, there is a whole major flowering that took place all the way, actually just, between, from Natya Shastra, which is about 2nd century kind of thing, to, I would say, the 12th century and 12th, 13th century. Like amazing stuff happened right after this 500 BC also, 500 AD.
See, rasa as a word is a Vedic word. We don't know where it came from. So rasa basically means essence. Essence. The fruit has an essence. You have an essence. The flower has an essence. The fire has an essence. So they each have a rasa. So they say rasa drives the word. It is not the object, but the objectness, the thing in the object. So that was codified eventually, that suppose I have rasa, then how do I communicate with it? So that became natya. That is, I do gestures, I have the capacity, eyes, ears, tone, speech, I can really communicate. So that rasa, so that you heard from the poetry there. Did people see the grandeur of Himalayas through the poetry? That's the rasa. Himalayas is not object. So now you say that, okay, through voice, I'm showing the depth of Jesus, the magnanimity of the Lord. You know what I mean? So like that. Other question? I'm kind of rushing because things are like, yeah.
So, can we say that emotions result from this essence, or from this rasa, or?
I will come to that. In my talk, I'll talk the science of it.
Yeah, one I'll actually just quickly mention that the difference between regular mundane emotions and rasa is that these emotions are innate already inside you, and so you respond to those things. But rasa is a higher benchmark. Rasa is even a higher benchmark where you have to, where you experience something transcendental, so special that it's beyond your mundane experience. So,
Say something like, at that time you're in a different world.
exactly and transcendence actually primarily means, it's been defined very clearly, is that there is something called swabhav, your mundane persona. Okay? You transcend your swabhav and take on a parabhav. You are seeing Ram and Sita in the play. And while you are watching that, you have become identified with Ram or Sita over there. So, let's say your name is Nina. Nina has gone into hibernation. Sita exists there. So your view of life is not, you're not thinking about your home and your other stuff and so on. And there, the entire discourse that you are engaged in is about Sita or Ram over there. You're seeing through their eyes, and that transcendence that takes place, as a result, it was stated there, is that you experience a sense of rest. And that rest is because you have put yourself on pause. And so repeatedly, once you start putting yourself on pause, you feel more and more restful. And that is what the work of true art, great art is.